All right, ladies and gentlemen, guess what time it is? It's showtime. And I'm your host, Brent Thomas. This is the Paranormal Portal. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope you guys are doing great on this tail end of your weekends. I don't know how your weekends went, but it's been pretty chilly here. I'm pretty cold. My fingers are cold, actually. I'll just have to keep mousing really heavily. Happy Valentine's Day to all of you. Of course, I want to extend my true and complete love to you all. I love you guys bunches. I love you all bunches. It's been an absolute honor to do this show, as always. Oh, hi, Mom. Mom's in the chat. And happy Valentine's Day to you. Yeah, it's just, I know, Valentine's Day is great and all, but, isn't it just another holiday? Shouldn't we love each other every day? I'm just saying. Just throwing that out there, but I do love you all, and thank you all for being here. You guys are like the greatest Valentine's gift of all, and I really appreciate that. So I hope you guys know how much you're appreciated. And the phone lines are open tonight. This is it's always a good time whenever you guys figure you want to call in. So if you've got something paranormal to share, please feel free to do so. You can call in at 720-923-0500. Again, 720-923-0500. And if during the course of the show you're like, oh, what was that number? I forgot it. What was that number? The number's right there. Right up there on your screen. It's a little dinky number up there. That's the one. So if you want to be a part of the show and call in maybe a little later in the program, I got a lot of stuff to go through. And of course, we got the Trail Cam Terrors coming up later yet, right at the tail end of the show. So you want to make sure to stick around to the end to check out what is the new Trail Cam Terror that I'm featuring on tonight's show. I'm just telling you, it's kind of creepy. I don't know what to make of some of these. Now, again, you never know what's truly genuinely a capture and what's potentially a forgery or a fake or a hoax, but you just got to take it with a grain of salt for the most part, unless you captured it yourself. But I believe there's been a few really good ones out there. I think that a lot of them are like, oh, I don't know, because there's some very talented people out there that can do some incredible things with imaging now. So it's tough to ever jump on board completely with people's images and pictures, but it is possible those are some pretty incredible captures. So, but come to your own conclusions. The show is never about telling you what to think. You got to think whatever you choose to. And that's entirely up to you. So, we got a lot to go through tonight. This is the cryptid corner of the night terrors. And so we're going to talk about creatures and cryptids. And we got a lot of that to go. So all I can tell you is I hope you're ready, because it's time for bed. All right, folks, that's it. We're underway. We are now officially underway. So I hope you all are ready for some curious and crazy cryptid stuff. I got a bunch of stuff pulled up. I'm not sure we'll have time for even all of it, but I'll get through as much as we can. The first thing that I'm going to bring to you guys was, let's see, it's part of an article that I've been reading through for the past few shows here and there. And I really wanted to read this one especially. But we'll read a couple of these. This is an article from thoughtcatalog.com, and the article is, 25 people tell haunting stories about inhuman creatures they saw with their own eyes. And we're going to read a couple of these. I don't know if we're going to go through all of them tonight, all of the rest of them tonight, but the first one I really wanted to go through because this is a phenomena that I have to tell you, I haven't been aware of for very long. And it's a very curious, weird phenomena, and that is of bipedal deer. And I know deer can rear up on their back legs, and they can, when they're like scratching or rutting or whatever, they can do all kinds of crazy things. But what people are seeing is these bipedal deer running around on two legs. like continuously and at full speed. And it's, I don't know, it's just creepy and crazy. And it's another one of those that you're just not sure what to do with it. But, if there's some fact to this, that's pretty crazy. Now, there are sometimes maladies that wildlife can have where they're forced to be, even though they're normally quadrupedal, they may adapt to be bipedal, just out of necessity. And I think it was in New England or somewhere, possibly in Maine or New York State. I don't remember where, but there was this black bear that was running around, and it was on 2 legs. And the reason why, though, is because it had some kind of either an accident or something happened to its front paws. But you could tell the way it was holding them that they were very misshapen and damaged to a pretty high degree. So this bear was, up on its legs, running around. That's my imitation, And there's, when people say, well, maybe you saw a bear instead of a Bigfoot. I got to tell you that if you look at a bear rearing up on its back legs, it looks nothing like a human silhouette. It really doesn't. And the big things are that they are actually very streamlined from their head down to their belly butt area. They're almost in this pear shape all the way down. They don't have shoulders like we do that come off like this. It's very streamlined because their legs are designed to be down in front of them, much like every other quadrupedal animal, like your dog. They don't have shoulders. There are some dogs that have wider shoulders than others, but nothing like a human frame. So, it's possible that some people confuse bear for, something much more sensational. But for the most part, I think most people can tell the difference. Notwithstanding the fact that bears, of course, have these huge ears that stick up. It's pretty much a dead giveaway that that's not a Bigfoot, because Bigfoot ears are largely unobservable. And it's, many people that have witnessed them say they're small and really tight to the head. And so there doesn't seem to be much as far as earlobes and stuff that come off of a Sasquatch. But I don't know how I ended up in bears. I'm talking about bipedal deer now, damn it. So this is a little snippet from an individual who said, I saw a creature that was half man and half deer. I did want to say that the first place I ever heard of bipedal deer was on the Confessionals podcast, Tony Merkel's show. And I'd never heard of that before. But I got to tell you, it really cooked my bacon listening to that program, listening to the claims that person was making. And I was thinking, my God, what the hell would that be like? What would you feel like even seeing that? It's so far away from normal that it's just into a whole different realm. And now most of this stuff is. But I got to tell you, something you're used to seeing running around frolicking in the yard all of a sudden is up on 2 legs chasing you. That's creepy as hell. But anyway, here's the story. It says, I was 7 or 8 years old visiting my paternal grandparents with the rest of my family. They lived deep in the woods, and I always hated it there. It felt like something was always watching and was always eerily quiet. Not like even crickets chirping. My little brother and I shared a bed in one room on the ground floor, and my brother would sleep at one end, his head against the window / wall, and I would be on the other, facing the window. On this particular morning, I woke up first. The sun was brilliant, making the room gold through the curtains, and there, a silhouette against the window, was a deer with the biggest rack of antlers I had ever seen. It was right there, like almost pressed against the window, in profile. Well, I stared in awe, and that's when it changed. In one smooth movement, it reared up on its hind legs, and it was no longer a deer, but a man. There were only 2 men in the area, my grandfather and my father, and it was clearly not either. Not sure that it made it better or worse. I suppose I could put this up so you guys can read with me. Grandfather was very built for his age. Dad had a gut. It was dad guts. Oh, God. The silhouette was clearly younger, muscular, but not in the like a brick way my grandfather was. It exuded strength and scared the hell out of me. It started to the side. It stared to the side for the moment and then strode off with purpose. I don't know what I saw. I want to believe it was just the groggy mind of a half-awake kid, but I remember the fear slicing into me. I remember the feeling of something being out there. When I'm reading this one isn't the bipedal deer that I thought it was. It's obviously something else, and it almost sounds like a skinwalker. Now, most people attribute skinwalkers as to turning into some kind of wolf or coyote looking thing, but the skinwalkers are also legendarily able to change shape into deer and other things. So that's not exclusively, a lupine transformation or canid. It's not necessarily either. It could be something along the line of deer or other such animals. When you see a deer and suddenly it stands up and it's a man, that definitely sounds skinwalkery. And I'm just throwing it out there. I'm no expert on either, obviously, but it certainly lines up with more of the reports of skinwalkers than anything else. And that's, here's the thing. Again, to our Western sensibilities, that stuff just sounds bizarre. Like, okay, yeah, it turned into a deer. And I understand that it doesn't align with our traditional Western thinking, but there are cultures on this earth that believe very much and completely and thoroughly that this is very possible. And that's got to be based on something. It's not just sleight of hand and, the it's not just the finger splitting, it's a little more in depth than that. So, I don't know, come to your own conclusions, of course, but that's pretty bizarre. I'm going to look here. Just let me see. That's 15. I think, let me just hold on to those. And if we have time, we'll come back to more of them. I wanted to read that one because I thought that was really interesting. And the next one is, I came face to face with a massive figure with red eyes. Oof. That's creepy stuff. But let me see what else we got here. First, because I pulled up a bunch of stuff. One thing I want to make sure to take the time to read tonight, after we finished the show last night. And in last night's show, I talked with Don. We were discussing these stick figure creatures. And they're these really strange, I don't know, they look like a humanoid walking stick type of insect, but they're enormous. They're like many feet tall. Sometimes, 7, 10, 14 feet tall, people are seeing them. And they look like stick men without the balloon head. It's really a crazy phenomena. It's very rare. You don't hear it reported much, but then again, if it looked like a stick, how easy is that to hide in the woods? I mean, when we observe and when we're looking for things, ladies and gentlemen, we're looking for familiar shapes. That's the way I think our vision works. We're looking for deer. Well, then you're looking for something that approximates a deer. If you're looking for a person or a Bigfoot, you're looking for something kind of similar in both ways, but you're going to have a preconceived mental image in your head that you're trying to match in your visual field. But who the hell's looking for these humanoid walking sticks? So how easy, if they just stand still, it's like, yeah, it's another stick in a field of sticks. So it's going to be able to blend in absolutely easily. So I don't know what to make of those, but we got done with the show, and I hadn't noticed I had a message on Facebook, and I go over there and I look, and I have a message from a listener, Jennifer, and she sent me this article. I was like, oh my God, that's really cool. Well, it works out good because tonight's the Cryptid Corner, so let's get into this article. And of course, it's by one of our favoritist, well, the favoritist paranormal journalist in all of paranormal land, and that is Brent Swanser. And this article is from March 12th of 2019, and you can find it on mysteriousuniverse.org. But it's the truly bizarre world of encounters with real stick figures. And I was like, I didn't even know this article was out there. So I was absolutely thrilled. Thank you, Jennifer, for sending that. I really appreciate it. And I'm really excited to read it with you guys because I have not pre-read this. So in fact, I rarely pre-read anything before the show. So that's how come I screw up articles once in a while. It's like, what is that word? It says, in the paranormal world, it's rare to have a whole new type of entity that doesn't fit into anything known or cataloged before. Aliens are aliens, ghosts are ghosts, mystery animals are cryptids, and so on. Yet, on occasion, there'll be accounts that are so off the beaten path and deep into uncharted weirdness that they deserve their own category. Such can be said of the absurd, yet increasingly prevalent presence of reports of people encountering what can only be described as stick figures. So here we'll take a little detour into the wilds of the very bizarre, where strange things lurk and stickmen walk about in the murk. Ooh, that was good rhyme. Lurk and murk. The phenomenon of the black stickmen is rather recent, mostly said to have really taken off in the late 2000s when across the internet forums there began to circulate a growing number of accounts of people seeing a totally new type of anomalous entity. Usually described as very tall, impossibly thin, black figures, typically devoid of any noticeable features, almost as if their name implies they were crudely drawn stickmen, come to life and stepped off the page. In some cases, they are even described as being actually two-dimensional, becoming almost invisible when viewed from a certain angle, or even morphing between 2 and 3 dimensions. And their movements are at times said to be disjointed and odd. But in other reports, very smooth and yet unnatural. Reports of feeling dizzy or tired in their presence are also not uncommon, as well as the distinct sense of a sort of static charge in the air, and sometimes a sense of malevolence. Although these entities are not known to be aggressive, indeed they are usually described as being rather skittish and acting almost surprised that they have been seen, usually escaping by creeping off into the night or simply vanishing into thin air. It all seems completely absurd, but there is actually quite a large number of supposed sightings of whatever these entities are, and they are every bit as bizarre as you might think. Look at that image, that's just creepy. Some accounts even go far back through the decades, only recently cropping up from witnesses online. And one of these was related to a forum in 40 Times, where a witness only known as Simon claims that he had an encounter with the stickman in Kent, England, way back in 1978. He says of his experience, "A group of about 10 of us are sitting chatting in the Luce Valley at about midnight. After about 45 minutes, Will leapt to his feet, slapping his head, saying there was a bee in his hair. He looked absolutely terrified. Both Dorothy and I saw the outline of a tall, thin figure wearing a hat dancing behind him. Will said later it was a terrifically loud buzzing that was coming up through the top of his head. However, only Rachel heard any buzzing. We partially satisfied ourselves that it must have been a bee's nest, and so we moved a little distance away. As we moved away, Dorothy and I saw a ring outlined in the grass, which enclosed where we had been sitting. Eventually it started raining, so we headed for Rachel's house. As we left, I turned around and saw the same thin black figure walk across the opening between the trees to where we had been sitting." In another comment on the site, Listverse, there's an encounter that supposedly happened back in 1982 in Essex, England. The witness claims to have been a nurse at the time and to have had her brush with the outlandish entity as it crept about the shadows of the hospital grounds at night. She says, "In 1982, when I was a student nurse at Worley Hospital, Brentwood in Essex, England, I encountered a stick person in the grounds of the hospital as I was walking home one night. It lopped across the roadway, having been seemingly pressed up against a wall. It stopped when it saw me and raised its arms in fright and quickly walked off into the undergrowth. It was very tall, with very thin, extremely long arms and legs, and a very small oval head. Totally black and no obvious clothing. I saw no face, even though it emerged very near a street lamp and was so well illuminated. I was terrified, and to this day, nobody believes me." Yeah, that's got to be horrible. In quite a few cases, the witnesses describe having seen these creatures when they were children, yet the memory has remained etched into their minds as clear as day. One such report comes from Reddit, when a witness who says he was he has a visitation from a stickman when he was just a very young boy. He says that one evening he woke up to a heavy feeling of dread. He got out of bed to go sleep with his parents down the hall, but he wasn't alone, he says. "When I got out of bed and opened the door about 5 feet away from me in the hallway was a tall, black, slender figure that was very thin. All black, no facial feature, a circled head. The arms and legs were really thin and the fingers looked sharp. It made no sound and was gliding as it walked. The way it walked was the most scary part for me. I only saw it for 2 seconds and then I slammed the door and started wailing and crying, and minutes passed until my mom shows up to my door and calms me down. I don't remember mentioning it to her, so she just thought I had a bad dream. She then got a roll of blankets and put them on the hallway floor for us to sleep together. For some reason, my mom likes to sleep on the floor because she grew up that way. My feet ended up being scratched very badly. It couldn't have been my mom's nails, and I remember it left a burning sensation. I'm 18 now, and it's one of the few earliest memories I had. I still live in the same house in Connecticut. So it's kind of a one-off. It's a one-off experience. So given the size of these things, what if they are two-dimensional? And that in and of itself is hard to imagine, because we seem, everything seems to need depth in order to exist in our realm of experience. We're in the third dimension. That's where we're doing our thing. So how can something two-dimensionally exist here outside of inanimate things like drawings and things on books and paper and stuff? Those are two-dimensional, or on TV, but it seems hard for us to imagine that there could be a sentient entity that could, exist and move around at will within our three-dimensional world. And it does. I don't know how that works. I don't know how it could work. It's just very, very, very strange. She says, this report is interesting because it gives a relatively rare glimpse into the possibly malicious nature of these entities, as they are most typically described as having a menacing air about them, but being for the most part harmless. Another report comes from a witness called Amalthea, who posted her story on both Reddit and on the site True Ghost Stories Archive. She says that this happened to her as she was growing up in California between about 1997 and 2004, and that her strange encounter would happen as she was hanging out with her best friend Jenny. The witness says that she had kept to herself out of fear of being ridiculed until she realized that others had seen the same thing. This particular account seems rather sinister in nature, and she says of her own sighting, "When I was growing up, I had a best friend who lived down the street. We lived in a quiet, small town where her dad was always working. I'd walk to her house every day after school, and we'd often take walks. Walk to the liquor store to buy candy, etc. And I would often see a stick man following us, peeking out from behind her couch, etc. He was all black and changed sizes. Sometimes the size of a small cat, other times taller than a normal-sized man. I felt very scared of him and felt he was mischievous at best, perhaps evil. I finally got the courage up to tell my best friend, and she admitted to seeing him too. I always got the feeling he was the same one every time, not different stickmen. One time he appeared in the shape of a stick figure horse, like a bad child's drawing, and I always believed him to be somehow following me and watching me until when my best friend passed away suddenly our senior year of high school. She had a genetic heart condition that nobody, including herself, had known about, and I've never seen what we called the stickman ever since. I believe now perhaps he was some form of grim reaper awaiting his time to take my friend. I don't know if that's really the case, but it seems odd, and the sightings of him disappeared after she passed. I never saw who we dubbed Stickman again. I'm researching him now, and that I'm in my late 20s because I recently confided in my husband about these weird experiences. Now, it does kind of come across almost more spiritual in these encounter stories, but I've seen what may very well be valid video of these things, and I mentioned this just last night on the show, but there's one video in particular that this woman is filming it outside of her screen of her window on the second floor, looking out onto her backyard or onto the yard, and then the yard there's grass up to a point, and then it turns into like scrubby, mostly cut down forest, but there's still some trees and stumps and stuff in there, and then it proceeds to a thick forested area behind that. And it's probably only 150, 200 feet from the house to the thicker forest. But as this person's filming, and this is obviously, if this is indeed legit, and if she did capture it, it seems that she was looking for it, like she had already seen it before, and I don't know how many times, and I don't know the backstory of it, but suddenly as you're watching this video, and it's very pixelated, it's really low quality video, but you start to see from behind this tree comes this stick figure. That's all I can explain it as, and it's not black as is described in here. It's just kind of a dark brown or brownish color, and maybe even tan, as I'm kind of not convinced anymore on what color it was. It's been a long time, but it just kind of starts walking and makes its way back through the trees, through the scrubby tree stuff, and then disappears into the forest. And it's really creepy because I'd never seen anything like that before. That was my first introduction to what the hell could that be. And I've seen others. Some of them appear real small. We just, not too long ago on the show, we featured a video that was apparently captured on a person's home security camera, or the Rings, or one of those cameras, and it's up on a roof or an overhang of their house, looking down at the cars parked there, and then there's like a turnaround area of their driveway, and there's trees in that turnaround area. There's like a little island or something like that, and from a tree, looks like it came right out of the tree, is this little 3 or 4 foot stick man. It walks around, and then it disappears into another tree, and then it walks around again, and it really does kind of make you wonder: is this a physical thing? Is it just able to hide so completely next to trees that you really can't see it? What is it? So, but these stories definitely make me lean more towards spiritual, but it could be either or both, and it's very bizarre. The witness, who was a child at the time, says that her and her parents witnessed a stick man from their moving vehicle as they drove home one night. The whole encounter was dripping with a certain sense of dread, although the thing in question did nothing to really threaten them in any way. She says, "I noticed something moving very quickly in front of the car. Here's where it gets difficult to describe. What appeared to be 2 black stick-like legs, as if the bottom half of a stick man, ran quickly past the car. Everything in that moment seemed to slow down, and I entirely lost my train of thought. The area around the legs even almost seemed static-like and blurry. Neither my mom or dad said anything immediately, so I shrugged it off as looking out into the night at a moving road for too long. But as I started my sentence again, my mom interrupted me. 'What was that?' She genuinely sounded terrified. And I knew immediately that she was talking about. I basically screamed back, 'The stick man?' And my mom began panicking. My dad seemed very confused and pulled over. Why would you stop? And we looked around the area where we saw it run. My mom said that she saw an entire stick man run from one side of the road to another, tall, lanky, almost two-dimensional, just a kid's drawing. And when she calmed down, she started describing everything about what she saw, including how it walked. This is only about a half a mile from their house, so we drove back, my dad still in a state of confusion, and my mom and I nearly shaking. Ultimately, we all came to the conclusion that everything in that moment was very hazy, as if time slowed down and we were seeing into another dimension. Why my mom and I saw it and my dad didn't, I still have no idea. Both of my parents are very religious people and typically try to debunk stuff like this. But they both agree that there is no way that what we saw wasn't otherworldly. We began researching and found that we weren't the only people to ever see the stick man. When my mom read one post about the way it moved, I saw her heart drop. The post said something about claims of the thing galloping, which is exactly how she had described it right after it happened. Normally, I'm very interested in stuff like this, but I was so terrified. I just wanted to forget it happened. For some reason, something about the situation just felt menacing. Yeah, I'll bet. Of course, it's not only children who have seen these things, and many more remarkable sightings are made by adults during their sightings and are rather recent. One very interesting report comes from a forum on 40 Times with an anonymous poster who saw one in England in 2010. He claims that the encounter occurred at a suburb called Brockley in southeast London, where he has a rather park-like atmosphere and plenty of trees. At the time, he'd been walking along a leafy street with a friend back towards his apartment at around dawn when they noticed something very surreal coming down the street towards them. He says, the word we coined later to describe its movement was lolloping, kind of an up and down bouncy walk. It took a few seconds for the two of us to realize this was no human being. I asked my friend, you see that, man? Yeah, was his reply. It's not a man, though, is it? I found myself asking. No, said my friend, sounding scared. It isn't. The creature was entirely black, like a cardboard cutout, flat and one-dimensional. It had no features at all, and it had arms that hung down to its knees, and it seemed to be ignoring us. Then it seemed to realize that we could see it, and it began to lollop faster towards us. We ran to my front door and hid in the hallway as quiet and unmoving as possible when we saw the thing. We felt it was male, approached the front door, and appeared to look through the glass from the way its head moved up and down and around, and it then turned away. We didn't sleep for some time after that, discussing what we saw. It was shaped like many descriptions of greys, but both myself and my friend came away with the impression that what we saw was either of this world or from another parallel dimension. To all intents and purposes, it appeared to be sauntering along the road, enjoying the walk before it became shocked to see us, staring at it in horror. We instinctively felt this was not a creature to try and communicate with. This was not something that was good to be near. We might have been wrong, but neither myself nor my friend would ever like to see this creature or others like it again, though I'd love to get some ideas on what it was. An even more recent report comes from 2015 with a Reddit commenter who says he was with a couple of friends on the night of this strange experience at around 10 p.m., taking a shortcut home through the dark alley, and he had a creepy detail that it also happened to be right up against a cemetery. He says of what happened next, this alley is pitch dark and pretty cold too. The only lights were all the way down at the end of the alley with some other lights as well. So halfway down this alley, so then I started getting a weird feeling like I was being watched. But it was a different feeling because it's my instincts telling me I was for real being watched, but I thought I was being paranoid. So we make our way down the alley into the light. So then I stopped, turned around a while. My friends were looking at me. Right at that moment, that's when I saw it. Just coming into the light, a very tall, 8 or 9 foot, very dark and very skinny, like, well, a stick figure. And it was walking at us. I couldn't believe it at all. One number saying, what the F? When he was saying that, I ran as fast as I can. My friends ran behind me as well, thank God. We all make it out of the alleyway, so I turn around for the last time, and it was where I first saw it, standing, and there's no way because I ran really, really fast, and nobody can be that fast at all. And the funny or worst thing was that it was still walking at us. We ran all the way home right after that, and we talked about it in group chat, not knowing what we saw at all. Sorry, that was very awkwardly written, but I did my best. And these things are seen all over the place. And another report comes from the Rocky Mountains. Out in the middle of nowhere, a witness was out setting up fish traps at a remote mountain stream at approximately 2 a.m. in the morning. And there were apparently 5 of them out in the dark going about their work. Or maybe 6 if you count the strange abomination lurking about in the gloom nearby. The witness says, after a buddy and I finished lowering a trap into the water, the atmosphere around us got real heavy. It felt like it was humid, but without the presence of moisture in the air. On top of that, our muscles suddenly felt real weak, as if we had just run a few miles with weights strapped on our back. My visions and the visions of my friends went blurry for a moment or two. When it all cleared up, we all noticed that something was not right. Off in the distance, no more than 20 yards away from us, was this tall, slender, pitch-black figure. It looked to be about 10 feet tall, and its limbs were real skinny looking. It just stood there for a moment, its limbs just moving around real slow, like as it looked at us. The creature had a head, but no real torso. Its body was as thick as its arms were its legs. Its body was as thick as its arms were its legs. And it had a real skinny-looking head with two bright white eyes. It just stared at us for the longest time. It didn't even make a noise. After a moment or so, the thing walked off to the side, and as it got further away from us, it got easier to breathe, and we were able to move once more. Naturally, we packed our stuff and hightailed it back home. To this day, we don't speak of what happened, and we never did go back for our traps. Wow. I hope those things like fish. These sorts of encounters with stickmen can be extremely unsettling for those who experience them, and can really cause people to reassess what they thought they knew. One good example is a commenter on True Ghost Stories archives, who is a self-proclaimed skeptic and seems to be having a hard time reconciling his own brush with a stick figure, of which he explains, "I honestly thought I was crazy. I'm 33, level-headed, and while I don't rule anything out, I generally don't think much of the paranormal. The other nights, morning maybe, I kept odd hours. I went outside for a smoke. My lawn has a low retaining wall about bench height and a long sloping road down to the creek. Noted for its malfunctioning street lights, I saw something walking down the middle of the road. I have a neighbor who walks at all hours of the day or night, and I didn't think much of it. But as it got closer, it looked like a pencil-drawn picture of a man done by a kid. It wasn't black so much as it was nebulous, like the static on a TV channel, gray and black moving in a blur, in the shape of the sign that lets guys know which door to go in. Oh, like a bathroom sign. Okay. The street lights flicker on, and it stopped. Looked around. I assume as much. All I saw was its head move, and saw me. As soon as it did, it took off down the road faster than my eyes could follow. I didn't tell anyone for a few days, then did the promise you won't think I'm crazy with my girlfriend. And she says she has heard of similar stories, and asked if I Googled it. I did, and here I am. At least if I'm crazy, I'll have company. Yeah, there's that. Here's the last paragraph. These are just a few of the numerous reports of these stick figures floating around out there, and they're each almost stranger than the last. We're left with an array of accounts outlining these encounters, with something that doesn't really seem to fit anywhere else in the world of the paranormal or cryptozoology. Just what is it, and what are we supposed to be looking at here? There are lots of ideas on what these things might be, such as aliens, ghosts, demons, interdimensional interlopers, something more akin to black-eyed kids, or simply just tricks of the lights, or even flat-out internet urban legend in the making, such as Slenderman, the Hat Man, and Momo. Yet the reports seem to be given with just as much earnestness as reports of any other paranormal phenomena, and we're left wondering whether they really did see something. And if so, what it was. Absurd? Maybe. Ridiculous? Obvious drivel? Quite possibly. Very weird? Definitely. No matter what one may think of the stick figure phenomena, the reports continue to come in of these mysterious phantoms, and it seems like a new feature of the landscape of the paranormal that is here to stay. Brilliant article. God, he does a great job. It's just, I love reading his work. And I love how he digs and finds the stories, man. It's just awesome. But what are they? I don't know. It does seem to be almost interdimensional. I don't know that they're spiritual. Maybe they are, but that does seem interdimensional or something to that effect, because the reason why I'm saying that is it's curious how many times people had that horrible feeling first. Well, I imagine if suddenly you found yourself in a different dimension, everything would feel horrible. It would feel awkward and weird. I mean, there's a rhythm to everything in life, right? So we exist in the rhythm of this dimension. And I suppose it's possible to transition dimensionally and maybe not feel much different, but perhaps wherever these things are from, if they're a lower vibrational kind of being, then when that gateway or doorway or portal opens or whatever, perhaps we're in their dimension as much as we're in ours. So it's the interchange between those that feels so terrible, and very curious. I don't know what they are. I don't pretend to know, but I guess I'm leaning towards something interdimensional, very probably physical to a degree, but maybe more energetic as well. That's really, really weird. I don't know, but it's anybody's guess, folks. We just don't know. But thank you, Jennifer, for sending that over. I really appreciate that. That is awesome. Where are we at with time? We're doing okay. This one is that there's an article that I think I want to read this one. And this is a Bigfoot report. And it's coming from another favorite source of mine that I haven't used for a long time. But I love this source. It's called thesingularfortean.com. Singular Fortean is Tobias and Emily Wayland. They are currently working on a documentary and maybe done with it now. I'm not sure what the status of that is, but if you want some great Fortean news, and the articles are usually pretty quick and concise, so you don't have to allot a lot of time to read them, but you get a lot of updates and current events. I know they're always investigating reports and stuff in their area, and they're kind of from the Illinois Great Lakes region and research a lot there. They've been doing a lot of research on the Mothman phenomena around Illinois, Chicago, Lake Michigan, and such. And there's apparently a ton of reports of people witnessing these Mothmen or bat people, or there's any number of different terms that are coined for that, but it's very strange. Whatever the case is, I love the Singular Fortean Society as well, and their website, singularfortean.com, and I recommend you check it out. They do great work. So this is a report coming from the Singular Fortean Society. This is from December 10th of last year, and this is Georgia woman reports violent encounter with Bigfoot on Blood Mountain. Well, I don't know about you, but this seems to fit into the cryptids pretty well. It says investigator Aubrey Bowen spoke to a woman recently who said she and her friend shot at an anomalous humanoid while camping off of the Appalachian Trail on Georgia's Blood Mountain. Georgia resident Alana Strickland told Bowen that the encounter occurred one warm June night in 2012 at around 11 p.m. According to Strickland, I was out camping with some friends on Blood Mountain, which is up in the north part of Georgia along the Appalachian Trail. I was 20 years old at the time, and I will go on record and say that I was not drinking. We had a bonfire and we were pretty mellow. We weren't whooping and hollering. We were mostly just hanging around telling stories from the week and whatnot. And we heard something over on what would have been my right side towards the denser part of the woods. We're only about 5 miles off the main trail, so we weren't terribly far. Wow, 5 miles off the main trail in woods is incredibly far. It had only taken us about a day to get there. We heard something pretty big. Most of us were hunters and that were there, so we could pretty much distinguish between squirrels, bear, and deer. So we heard something really big, and we assumed it was a bear. Like any good red-blooded Americans, we got our guns. And just to make sure, because you don't shoot unless you can see it, we got our lights and we walked out there to see what it was. A lot of the girls were making high-pitched squeaking noises because they were frightened versus me and the guys who went out there and thought it was probably nothing and we'd scare it off. Right in the tree line, our lights kept catching something big and reflective that was probably about 6 feet or so tall. If it was standing just behind the trees, Its eyes were about 6 feet above the ground, which is what made us think that it wasn't a bear, because bears aren't typically that tall in the area that we are. We'll get black bears and maybe the occasional small brown bear that wanders that far down, but black bears are more common, and they only stand about 4.5 to 5 feet tall. So we shot at it, me and this guy named Wolf, and that's his legal name. He puts that in there. That's his legal name. He and I were about the two closest, and we shot. And we were the ones closest to it, and either his or my shot landed on it. There was a lot of noise from the guns, so it was hard to tell what the creature sounded a lot like. It wasn't the movie gorilla noise. It was a real gorilla noise, but much deeper. Which, again, there was a lot of gun firing and stuff, so that's the best I could describe it from memory. We didn't see anything more, so we went to investigate the area because it's down. Then, obviously, we needed to do something about the body. Bodies left in the woods aren't good, typically. Or we need to hide the evidence if it's a bear. We didn't see anything aside from large indentations in the leaves on the ground, as if something large had been standing there, and blood puddled in the leaves and along some of the trees moving away from the camp. We saw broken branches as high up as about 6 feet. That's the story how I shot a Bigfoot. Strickland then told investigators that out of their party of 6 or 7 people, 4 of them had firearms, and those who were armed each shot 2 or 3 times. All the guys and myself had a gun, she said. I had a Colt 45 and my friend had a Magnum, so he had the big gun. We're assuming that's what got whatever we shot. She explained that they were about 30 feet away before opening fire, but it was difficult to see what happened after the shooting started because of the commotion and the muzzle flare. I didn't see it turn around, Strickland said. I just know that whatever was reflecting the light, the creature's eyes was there, and then it wasn't. And then when we went to investigate, we found physical evidence of it running away. And there are other limbs further on that were the same height and lower that were broken. I didn't see any fur, she added. I just saw eyes and then blood. She described the creature's eyes as being red-orange color, and the impressions left in the forest floor as definitely wider than your standard 8.5 by 11 book, and at least twice as long as a bear's foot. The leaves are really dense there, though, through there, so even if we had plaster of Paris or something like that, we wouldn't have been able to make anything, but they looked really big, she said, of the tracks. Everyone agreed it wasn't a bear, but we didn't tell the girls. Strickland said that the experience terrified everyone present. The girls were really jumpy at any little noise following the encounter, she said, and the forest remained eerily silent. At the time, we talked about how quiet it was. Sorry about that. Strickland also reported that her friend Wolf had previously encountered Bigfoot in the same area, although that sighting was just that he'd seen something walking through. Bigfoot sightings are reported relative frequency on and around Blood Mountain. 3 sightings in Union and Lumpkin counties reported between 1994 and 2009 are currently listed on the BFRO database, and 2 additional sightings were submitted to Phantoms and Monsters in 2019 by investigator Dan Maslock. Okay. So that's very curious. I don't really condone that type of activity. It's like something made a noise, let's shoot it. so what? Something made noise, and they say the headline is a violent encounter with Bigfoot. Well, the violence was only from them. Other than that, all they saw was this. Oh, there's some eyes looking at us. I think that's a terrible reaction to not knowing what the hell you're shooting at. Not, and the other part of it is I don't know, if the thing died or whatever, then what are you leaving for everyone else to deal with? So then you got a pack of aggressive Bigfoot that hate people. I think that's absolutely, not a good reaction. Not a good reaction at all. So I wouldn't condone that. I understand if it's moving in towards your camp, if it's throwing stuff, you may have to do what you have to do. But just because it's there, That's not a good enough reason, I don't think. I think that's horrible. I don't like that story too much. And you know, it's nobody's fault. It's in the past, obviously, but it is tragic because it was just there. It was like, what's going on over there? Boom, you know? I don't like that. That's just me, folks, but I don't like it. I think that's horrible. But do you know what time it is? Do you know what time it is? Well, I'm going to tell you. It's time for the Trail Cam Terrors. Trail Cam Terrors, folks. Right now, right here on the dial. You don't even have to change the channel. That's the quality of entertainment I'm providing here. I'm just patting myself. Yes. Good job, Britt. Good job. Thank you. Give me a round of applause. Thank you. Trail Cam Terrors, folks. This is the segment of our shows where we feature... Oh, I got a phone call, too. We'll get to the phone call. Let's get to the phone call first. We'll do the phone call first, and then the Trail Cam Terrors. All right, this is area code 509. You're on the air. Hello? Hello? Area code 509. Are you there? They're listening to the...
Hey, Brent.
Yeah, hey. Who am I talking to?
1 second. Putting you on speaker.
Oh, okay.
Hey, this is Aiden.
Hey, Aiden. How you doing, man?
Yeah, I've called in. Yeah, a friend I was talking to recently, he reminded me of something that happened to him when he was 10 years old back in Alaska Southeast, and I thought you all might find interesting.
Okay.
So he was, when we were kids, we used to play a lot of hide and seek and chase. In our yard, we had it was in Sitka, so there was a lot of wilderness in our backyards and the swamps. And anyway, I remember it was, I think it was like in November. It was winter time, I remember, and we were on I wasn't there, but he was playing hide and seek with some of our friends in the neighborhood.
Okay.
And went into the back of the house, the yard, and they were taking their places to hide. I remember I used to do this too, sitting there, often freezing my tail off, waiting for someone to find me.
Sure.
The growing dark, like 6, 7-ish in the evening, twilight. Yeah. And anyway, he was in the backyard, in the houses, and he heard something, and he thought it was one of his friends that was coming to find him, maybe adults and everything, or somebody. And supposedly something came through out of the brush, and it looked something like, at first he thought it was a moose, but he has this idea like it looked like it was walking strangely. Mm-hmm. And as it came out into the clearing, and he was actually up in a tree, and this thing was like, it was almost as high as he was.
Oh, geez.
It was like 20, 30 yards away at the edge, and it looked in his direction, even though he swore it was like his heart was beating, and he was trying to breathe, and he still thinks today it might have been a moose, but he looked in his direction. Remember, it had antlers.
Okay. And
it went he crossed into the woods, and eventually he got down. He was a little stiff from that, like, all right, because, moose and everything, we had trouble with that. So anyway, he got down from there, and he went back, and he was just reminding this recently. We were looking at some photographs online, wildlife and places back in Sitka of that, and he was like, oh yeah, that weird thing that happened. And so I don't know what it was. It just, he'd seen moose and been up to Anchorage, where they often are there, and he knows how aggressive they are. They attack a lot of people. Yeah. I think they even killed people there. Yes. Same in Montana. Sure. So anyway, so basically, yeah, that he'd seen that, and the way he was walking, he thought it was kind of weird. So anyway, I just wanted to share that story with y'all.
Well, I appreciate that. It's funny because actually moose kill more people every year than bears. So they are no joke. Yeah. If you see a moose, you definitely stay way the hell away.
And bears probably kill more people in Alaska than almost anything else except moose. I thought that was interesting when I heard that. Like, no way. Yeah. Like, yeah, they're down at the edges, the corners of the street and stuff. We'd walk by them a few blocks away, give them a space, maybe clearing or eating the brush or the gardener's stuff. Anyway, so that was kind of cool.
Well, thanks for calling in and sharing that. I appreciate that.
You're very welcome. Yeah, I thought you'd like that.
All right.
Anyway.
Have a great night.
Now on to the programs.
All right.
Okay.
We'll see you. Very cool. Yeah, moose are no joke. Now, last 2 winters ago, we were in the house here, and we had a big mother moose and her cub or calf come in and just lay in the backyard. Now the house here is about, I don't know, about 3 feet above the ground. And so I was standing in the back porch, which is mostly windows, and where the washer and dryer is and stuff. And sure enough, the moose walked by. And first came the baby one. And he was a really big, I mean, he was over a year old anyway, but he was about 6.5 feet tall. And I'm about 5'10", and I'm standing on 3 feet, 2.5 to 3 feet of elevation from the ground. And I'm, looking down on this young moose. I'm thinking, God, that's huge. I thought at first that was the mom. Following this calf was the mom. And she and I were eye to eye, level. I mean, that's how huge those things are. And they are all kinds of power. And they came and laid in the backyard. It was just standing out in the back porch looking at them. And, I took a few clips of them. Much like our Julia is the mod Black Tree on our channel here, and she had a moose over, and she only lives just a little bit away from me. That was a me. I got a stuffy nose, so she only lives a short distance away from me, and she had a moose right outside her door. But they are huge. I mean, they are literally enormous when you're next to one, and God, if there wasn't a wall there, there's no way I would have been anywhere near that, just because of the size and power. Now, it's usually the male moose that are really, really aggressive, but a mother moose will very, very actively defend her calf, and could definitely kill a person without even breaking a sweat. They would just stomp you. And they do a stomping with their foot where it's like they literally pick it up and slam it down, and then they ram their heads and grind you into the dirt. They crush your rib cage. I mean, it would just be game over. So yeah, moose look like these gentle, sweet animals, but God, they are more dangerous than bear. So if you ever see a moose, give it a really wide berth. Don't ever go anywhere near it. Now then, let's get back to the trail cam terrors. All right, folks, this is the trail cam terrors, and this one comes with a bit of an explanation as well. And this is an image that it's been around for a long time. This is not new by any measure, but it's really creepy. And I've looked at this and looked at it and looked at it, and I kind of think that maybe it's not what it appears to be, but I can't figure out what it actually is. I just think that it might be kind of a unique set of pareidolia and maybe a familiar shape at a weird angle, but like a deer doing something weird. And it's because the legs and stuff on it don't seem to be quite organic, but the colors really match the deer in this frame. And the one I'm talking about is, let me put it on screen so you guys can see it, but here it is. There is a bit of a backstory to this, or a little bit of a story that I've got for this one. And the story is, it says on this article, this is coming from therichest.com. They have this full page of many different trail cam pictures. It says this is one of those pictures that you need to look at a couple of times if you're to have any chance of figuring out what is going on. Upon first glance, it seems to be a picture of a deer or something deer-shaped running away from a predator. Not all that weird, right? Well, a second glance at the predator in question reveals that it's like no known creature in the world today. Whatever the mysterious animal is, it seems to have the body of a monkey or animal that is most definitely not native to the forests of the United States. Just below the creature's demon-esque head, nesting up at the top of the shoulder blades, is what looked to be a pair of wings. So I guess the fiction classic The Wizard of Oz may not be quite as fictional as we thought. Yeah, it is really weird. What is it? A jackalope. Tom Paul says, jackalope. You might be right. Could be a jackalope. I don't know. But again, I think it's one of those things that it could be another deer, and it's just at a really weird angle. And so it might be a combination between the deer and some trees being illuminated behind it that give it that weird shape. I don't know. The coloring is so similar to the little deer that's bounding away. And it looks like this one's bounding the same direction as if it's in pursuit. Obviously, the tripod that you're seeing here, folks, is like a feeder that people set up to, they can bait deer through the seasons. In some areas, that's not illegal. So, it's a possibility. But they put a trail cam out there to see what's going on, and this is what they caught. So I will say that the deer bounding away does look tiny, like it might be a very young one, but I don't know. Just really creepy, whatever the hell it is. Kangaroo baby. Yeah, kind of like a kangaroo body. You're right, Malia. That's a good idea. Look at those ears. Yeah, I don't know what the hell it is. It's really, really strange. But again, I don't know if any more explanation has ever come out of it. But very weird all the same. So, I don't know. That's the trail cam terrors. I hope you guys enjoy that. This one's been around for a long time. I don't know when it finally hit the net. I didn't find that out by doing a reverse image search. If you're ever looking for, where this picture comes from, you do a reverse image search and you can find out when a picture first is recorded as coming onto the net or where it was first found. And a lot of them are from like 2011, 2012. I haven't seen a lot of brand new trail cam pictures for quite a while, so I don't know why that is. If people just aren't doing it as much anymore, I can't imagine that's true. If anything, there's more trail cams than ever out there than there have ever been. But I don't know if there are any good ones come up and you find them, send them my way. I'd love to see some other examples too. But there you go, folks. That's going to be our journey for tonight. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. I enjoy it all the time. This is the Trail Cam Terrors. So, folks, this is it. That has been our night terrors for the night. I hope you guys have enjoyed this journey into the weird cryptid corner of the universe. There's just strange things out there. But that's our bread and butter here on the portal. So if you find strange things or articles or things that you'd like to see us cover, just like Jennifer sent me the one on the stick figures, send them to me. I'll be happy to review them and possibly read them on the show. I appreciate it because you guys are out there looking. I only have two eyes. So if you guys find weird stuff as you're cruising, sorry, it's like prowling and cruising together is carousing. Prowling the interwebs, then by all means send them my way. And I'll be happy to look over it and possibly read it on the show. And again, remember, the new podcast will be coming out in just a little bit here. I think it's all set to go. And I'll get that uploaded and published. And hopefully you guys will tune in. And it's a interview I did with Chihuahua Bigfoot. There was a good discussion I had with those gentlemen. And they're basically in the area here. Chihuahua is a town just over in Washington State, not real far from me. So definitely check it out. I'd really appreciate it. If you're checking out the podcast, please leave us good reviews if it's possible to leave on the sites. Refer other people to them. Refer them to our YouTube. If you're brand new to the YouTube videos, please like and subscribe. I'd love to have you guys be part of the journey. If you hit the notification bells, you'll know when we go live. But just to let you know, we go live Wednesday night through Sunday night here on YouTube, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So I'd love to have you guys be a part of it. And it's always wonderful to look up and see new faces and new names. So please feel free to introduce yourselves as you come in. But just remember, I love you guys. Lou the Good Dude. That's awesome. Lou the Good Dude. Good to see you, Lou the Good Dude, and everyone else that's here. 72 of you here. Wow. I'm absolutely humbled. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for being a part of my journey tonight. And I hope you guys have a brilliant week, a brilliant Monday and Tuesday. I'll be back on Wednesday night live here on YouTube, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time with Don. And we'll do a 2-hour Paranormal Portal. So hope you guys will be here and be a part of it. But anyway, love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other. Help each other out. Find the magic in every day. And remember to laugh as much as you can. I love you guys. I love you so much. Happy Valentine's Day. Just know that you guys mean the world to me. And I'll see you soon. Peace.